Quilty is brought to you by
APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing.
Havel's Sewing. When you need to cut it close, choose Havel's.
Moda, make something quilty with Moda fabrics.
Hello everybody, welcome to Quilty. We are going to do a This Is My Quilt episode right now with Ashley Briggs. Welcome, Ashley Briggs.
Thank you.
Ashley is part of the sort of Quilty creative crafts group, Fons and Porter family. What do you do here at?
A video producer and editor, so I'm normally not on this side.
Right, which I think it's very cool that you can do both because I don't really know how to operate a camera other than pushing record.
Okay.
Which is important.
It is.
It's maybe
Baby
fundamental.
step, all right.
Okay. But we are having you here on this side of the camera to talk about this beautiful, beautiful quilt. I have so many questions to ask you about this quilt. First of all, does it have a name?
It doesn't. Maybe we should name it right now.
We should.
Okay.
We should name it. By the end of the show, we're going to have a name for this
Okay.
quilt. Tell me about the inspiration for this quilt. This is your first quilt, right?
Yes, my first quilt. So I just recently moved to the Denver area, and the first thing that my grandparents did when we got there was take us to the Denver Botanical Gardens. And so walking around there, and there's just one place that just stood out to me, and it was all these lily pads, and they actually dye the water this dark purple black to make them really stand out. And so I had taken a picture of it, and then when I was like, I'm going to make a quilt, I'm like, I'm going to make that lily pad. That's what it needs to be. So that's what I did, just 12 times.
Well, okay, so let's take a look at your lily pads.
Okay.
The first thing I noticed, there's so many things. I'm very impressed, Ashley, because the thing is that most people who do their first quilt do not design their first quilt.
I didn't know that.
Exactly, and that's awesome because half the time beginners are like, I'm gonna do a Dresden plate, and they just do it, and then people are like, you can't do that, and you're like, well, I just did. So you did this. So tell me about, so I noticed the design, I noticed the curved seams, also usually something that is, people will tell a beginner to wait on.
Right.
You had no trouble.
No, well, because growing up, my mom taught me to sew when I was like 7, and I always just sewed garments, and so to me it was just like sewing in an arm's eye or something if you're gonna, so it was easy for me because it felt like it was something that I'd already done.
Great. So you drew upon skills you already had.
Yes.
What about the part that was tough for you, like making this?
Actually, and I just now thought of this because you'd asked me this before and I didn't have an answer for it, but like the math that went into how I had to make this fit into here, which to make it all the right size. And so my boyfriend's not a quilter, but he's an engineer, and so he did all the math for me. So that helped me out a lot.
That's awesome. Well, again, most beginners will consult a pattern that already exists.
So does for me.
You're like,
he's my human pattern.
Good. That's good. Keep him around. We like him. The other thing I noticed certainly about this quilt is the lilies on the lily pads, the flowers, and these are, tell me about these.
These are, I just looked at the picture and I just kind of made these little drawings and cut each one out a little bit differently, and then being that I do work in an office that's full of quilters, I was going to each one of them and asking for advice, and one of the ladies was like, you have to hand applique them on there. It'll look so much better because I had so many, petals stacked on petals that it would really have gotten hard to kind of sew them on there. So I was like, well, okay. So I would cut them out and I would make my block, and then I would just sit on the couch and watch TV and put my little petals on there.
One thing that you could do with a quilt like this and any kind of hand applique that you do, you can take it with you. It's hard to take a sewing machine with you when you go to the dentist's office and you're waiting or something, or waiting for your kid's soccer practice to end. But you could take one of your little lily pads and totally stitch it.
Yep.
That's really cool. So tell me about the quilting on the quilt too.
Okay. So I didn't really know how to quilt a quilt. So I just, on my machine, picked one of the decorative little wavy stitches and decided that would kind of make it look like a lily pad. And then I was just going to do some stipple quilting, and that was so hard for me because I wanted everything to look exactly the same, and I couldn't just like sit down and just let it go and go. So that was kind of tough.
You had to release control.
I really did. That was so hard.
It can be.
Yep.
Yeah, quilters are not patient. There's like this myth that we're very patient and that you have to have all this patience and serenity to make a quilt. But the truth is that we're very impatient people. Proof positive. I mean, we have proof that we are because we have to be doing something with our hands all the time, and we want to make things, and then we finish a quilt and we want to make another one and all that. Okay, so what was you said the hardest part was the math. How did you find the binding to be? Because that's usually on a first quilt, that's like something that people they hate. Like
in sewing, I've made like a placemat or something small. So I knew kind of sort of how a binding went together, but then I never really thought about how you make it look like it's cohesive all the way around.
Yes.
So I logged on to Quilty and watched an episode that she did with Ebony and taught me all how to do it. So
That's true.
I had
It's a
to
great
watch it like 5 times though, because I'm like, I don't. And then it took me actually having to sit down, watch it while I was going through it, and then I was like, oh, well now it makes perfect sense.
It does make sense.
So.
It's that flip open thing.
Yes.
Foo. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
watched it too. Sometimes when I'm doing binding, I still need to have help remembering flipping. It's just the case. So where is this quilt in your home?
It was on the living room wall for a little while.
Awesome.
So
it does seem to be a wall quilt to me. Well, I am incredibly impressed, and I think this is really, really neat. And we said we were going to have a title
Right.
by the end of the show. And so I am thinking, I mean, your grandmother, right? You
Took us to
the
Gardens.
botanical gardens. So what do you call your grandma? Grandma's lilies.
Okay.
Grandma's
I can go with
lilies?
that.
I mean, that's kind of nice.
It has a nice ring to it.
Yeah,
We'll go
grandma's
with that.
lilies, or
Grandma's
like
lilies.
yeah, or you could call it Colorado lilies. Something.
I like grandma's.
lilies. Yeah, I like it too.
more
Grandma's
personal.
lilies.
I like it.
Yeah, and you don't have to go with that, but I think it might be kind of nice. And I really like that we came up with something on
I
the
know.
show.
Yeah, I'm glad we did.
We're just that creative. This is incredible.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and I know you have many, many quilts in your future.
I do. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Quilty is brought to you by
APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing.
Havel's Sewing. When you need to cut it close, choose Havel's.
Moda, make something quilty with Moda fabrics.